President Sisi welcomes Egypt's historic World Cup squad in Al Alamein. Iran's supreme leader warns US and Israel as tensions rise. And the Iranian president calls for immediate regional de-escalation. Seven p.m. Cairo local time for the news. And here are the news in detail. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has received Egypt's national football team in Al Alamein alongside senior officials, praising their historic 2026 World Cup performance. President Sisi awarded players and staff honors recognizing their discipline, determination, and exceptional level. He reaffirmed national pride in their achievement and expectations for continued success. Players expressed gratitude and pledged to build on this milestone. The meeting concluded with a luncheon reflecting state appreciation and strong support for the team's future journey. President Abdel Fattah al-Sisi has addressed Egypt's national team, praising their honourable World Cup performance and affirming widespread pride locally, regionally and globally. The Egyptian leader praised their discipline and values reflecting Egypt's character, stressing that respect earned outweighed results. President Sisi said the team represented Egypt's youth with distinction, spreading national joy through committed performances. He highlighted Egypt's football talent pool, calling for impartial scouting and reaffirming state support for emerging players and national staff. He concluded by urging sustained hard work, unity, and building future generations to advance this success. Egypt and Turkey are stepping up joint diplomatic efforts to defuse regional tensions, launching a coordinated push to revive stalled negotiations between Washington and Tehran. During a phone call, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati and his Turkish counterpart Hakan Fidan stressed the urgent need to contain the current military escalation. Both ministers emphasized the importance of strictly implementing the recent US-Iran Memorandum of Understanding. They called on both nations to return to the negotiating table through dialogue and diplomacy, warning that a collapse of the framework risks plunging the entire region into war. Cairo is further drawing a firm line in the Horn of Africa tonight. Egypt's foreign minister has strongly reaffirmed support for Somalia's sovereignty, flatly rejecting any diplomatic recognition of Somaliland. During a high-level phone call with his Somali counterpart, Abdisalam Abdi Ali, Egyptian Foreign Minister Badr Abdulati declared Cairo's absolute refusal of any actions that compromise Somalia's territorial integrity. The diplomatic call underscores rapidly deepening ties between the two nations following Mogadishu's approval of a major maritime and port cooperation pact with Egypt. Both ministers pledged to maintain tight security coordination to ensure stability across the critical Red Sea corridor. Tensions escalate in the Middle East tonight as Iran's new supreme leader has delivered a furious warning to the United States and Israel. In a message broadcast on state television, Ayatollah Muqtada Khamenei declared that avenging his slain father and predecessor remains an absolute regional demand. The statement coincided with a national funeral ceremony for Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, who was killed months ago in a joint US-Israeli airstrike on February 28th. The new leader pledged that retributing against what he called criminal and disgraced killers will certainly take place. A diplomatic push to ease the maritime standoff in the Gulf tonight. Iranian Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi has arrived in Oman for critical talks on the Strait of Hormuz. According to the Tasnim news agency, the discussions center on securing safe passage through the vital waterway, which handles a fifth of global oil supplies. This follows a direct demand from Washington on Friday for Tehran to publicly halt attacks and ensure all shipping lanes remain open toll-free. Tehran has largely controlled the strait during the conflict, triggering a high-stakes standoff with the US military. A massive escalation in rhetoric from Washington as President Donald Trump has issued a severe military warning to Tehran, threatening total destruction if Iran attempts to assassinate him. In a fiery post on Truth Social, the US President announced he has ordered the military to prepare immediate retaliatory strikes against Iran. Trump claimed 1,000 missiles are, quote, locked and loaded and aimed at the Islamic Republic should it act on reported assassination threats. He added that standing orders are already in place for a one-year period, authorizing the US military to completely decimate and destroy all areas of Iran if an attempt is made. Prospects for a final nuclear deal with Iran are rapidly fading tonight, with Washington warning to severe military consequences over any disruption to global shipping lanes. The Wall Street Journal reports that senior Trump administration officials now view a final accord as highly unlikely. The warning comes as US officials reveal that Tehran has privately claimed its recent attacks on commercial vessels in the Strait of Hormuz were unintentional. Despite this spike in maritime friction, Iranian officials are reportedly urging Washington to keep the diplomatic track open and continue ongoing negotiations. Iranian President Masoud Pezeshkian is calling for immediate regional de-escalation, warning that lasting peace depends entirely on all parties honoring their diplomatic commitments. Speaking during a phone call with Pakistani Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif, the Iranian president stressed the critical need to preserve recent political achievements. Pezeshkian emphasized that stability in the Middle East requires all sides to show restraint and refrain from any provocative actions. He also urged stronger regional cooperation to protect ongoing diplomatic channels amid the heightened military tensions. For more analysis, we now move to Mark Summers in our newsroom. To you, Mark.
Thank you very much, Moniz. Good evening, everyone. We're now joined from Washington, D.C. by the author and journalist Matthew Vadum. Thank you very much for being here with us on Q News. So the president is saying that the ceasefire is over. However, he did also say at the same time that they are pausing military action whilst discussions continue. Washington and Tehran saying talks are meant to continue. Is diplomacy able to function when the security agreement seems to have at least somewhat collapsed?
It's going to be very difficult for negotiations to move far forward when the two sides just recently resumed open hostilities towards each other. So, I don't put much stock in the possibility of meaningful negotiations taking place at this time. I suspect what's going to happen, if the two sides are serious about negotiating, is that they're going to have to start again. They're going to have to start anew and from scratch, and map out the parameters of whatever it is that they want to agree on, and I've never had high hopes in negotiations between Iran and the United States. Iran, can't be trusted, always violates the terms of peace agreements. Um, I think that peace negotiations with a country like the Islamic Republic of Iran are more or less pointless. And but the United States has a solid core of diplomats who think that they can cause peace to break out by talking to the Iranians, and I'm sure they're going to try. Right now, President Trump is, really gung ho and is talking about raining down hellfire on Iran, and causing all sorts of problems for that country. But
Not for the first time, of
he
course.
has been known to pivot.
Yes,
Yeah,
he's warned several times already about some kind of massive,
right.
almost nuclear attack on
Yeah,
Iran, and nothing
and
seems
then
to
he
come.
backs out.
Yeah, taco, would you say?
I wouldn't say that, because if he were Trump always chickens out, he wouldn't have assassinated Ali Khamenei. But I understand where that criticism comes from, and it's a popular meme on social media.
It is.
Um,
Trump, of course, is also reportedly warning that a final nuclear deal, which, after all, was the whole point of this military action, is but now highly unlikely, they're saying. So how do we get to a resolution if that is the case?
well, America blowing the tar out of Iran would be a good start. I don't think Iran has been humbled. They have not learned their lesson. They just had what amounted to a big party, a massive Nuremberg style rally, funeral rally for Supreme Leader Ali Khamenei, and where they carried around a banner. I saw pictures of it it was like at a parade where it said, "We will kill Donald Trump." And how do you talk to people like that? I just don't see any point in doing it. But there are diplomats who think that things can be accomplished, and maybe they can. But if things are going to get accomplished, I think they're going to have to wait at least a few days for things to cool down again.
Yeah, I mean, of course, the United States and Israel did assassinate their supreme leader. So seeing at his funeral a sign saying "We will kill Trump" is something that you probably have to expect. But let's move to President Pezeshkian. He's urging all sides to honour their diplomatic commitments. Of course, he's a bit out on his own now, as the hardliners are putting a lot of pressure, domestic pressure, onto him. Do you think that he can weather this storm?
No, no. I think that President Pezeshkian has become largely a figurehead since the war started on February 28th, and that the more hardline, it's difficult when you say hardliners in the Islamic regime, because Pezeshkian is a true believer, just like the Revolutionary Guard, but he is not as adamant and not as committed to war as the Revolutionary Guard is, and the Revolutionary Guard, and its uh, supporters are the ones calling the shots in Tehran right now. Pezeshkian is just trying, is like, what is that saying? He's like riding a tiger, trying, trying to make sense, trying to survive. And I don't think they're going to listen to him. And he doesn't seem to have a lot of power in in the Iranian system of governance at the moment. So
But do you think then that these clashes between the United States and Iran that we saw this week are going to continue, or we have slightly smaller tit-for-tat kind of exchanges? Is that what you see going forward? Do you think they are going to get back into some kind of discussions, whether brokered by Qatar or by Pakistan?
They'll probably get, will they have some discussions? Yeah, I think the United States is open to discussions. Whether I had heard that it wouldn't necessarily be Pakistan, that it might actually be Saudi Arabia, which is, I think, respected by, to an extent at least, by both Iran and the United States. So Saudi Arabia could help lead talks.
Well, we shall see and watch closely. Thank you very much, Matthew Vadim, author and journalist, joining us from Washington, D.C. Thank you very much and have a very good day. Now let's go back to Mona in the studio.
Well, thank you so much, Mark, for the analysis. And back to the diplomatic front, where the Trump administration has delivered a mixed signal on the Middle East conflict, agreeing to ongoing talks with Tehran while declaring the ceasefire dead. Writing on Truth Social, President Trump confirmed Washington will continue negotiations, but stated Iran has been told in no uncertain terms that the temporary truce has ended. The sudden friction comes as CNN reports Qatari negotiators have arrived in Iran after direct coordination with Washington. The diplomatic team is attempting an urgent de-escalation efforts to revive the crumbling framework and prevent a return to full-scale regional conflict. A diplomatic war of words between Washington and Tehran tonight. Iran has flatly denied President Trump's claims that it requested a new round of direct negotiations. The denial follows a post by Donald Trump on Truth Social stating Tehran asked to continue dialogue while declaring the previous ceasefire is over. Iran's foreign ministry spokesperson dismissed the claim, stating no such request was made, though Tehran did host a Qatari mediator on Friday. Iranian state media also rejected U.S. reports that a fresh round of talks is scheduled for next week in Switzerland. The landmark U.S.-Iran ceasefire agreement is on the verge of collapse. Tehran is formally accusing Washington of repeatedly violating their newly signed nuclear and maritime accord. Iranian Foreign Ministry spokesperson Ismail Baqai stated that U.S. violations have become habitual, pointing to recent American airstrikes and newly declared economic sanctions. Tehran claims these actions openly breach multiple provisions of the June Memorandum of Understanding, including clauses on oil sales and regional security. In the meanwhile, Iran's parliament speaker warned that the military remains fully prepared to defend the nation if Washington completely walks away from the deal. China is urging the UN Security Council to step up and rescue stalling Middle East peace talks, warning that regional stability hangs in the balance. Speaking at an open council meeting, China's deputy UN envoy Sun Li called for an impartial stance to revive diplomatic negotiations on the Iranian nuclear issue. He noted that while a recent U.S.-Iran Memorandum of Understanding temporarily eased regional friction, the current ceasefire faces renewed volatility. Beijing is urging all relevant parties to approach the complicated negotiations with a rational and pragmatic attitude to protect global interests. And moving on, fears of a renewed escalation are mounting along the Lebanese border, with reports that Israeli forces are carrying out large-scale demolitions and leveling infrastructure across seized territory in southern Lebanon. Lebanese state media reported that Israeli troops have launched extensive clearing operations using explosives by systematically detonate residential buildings and facilities within the border buffer zone. The reports also note that Israeli forces deployed incendiary balloons over the outskirts of the southern town of Kafr Rumman, sparking fires in nearby agricultural fields. The upstick in scorched earth tactics comes amid fragile international efforts to finalize a comprehensive withdrawal agreement. And now to the World Cup, where the lineup for the Final Four is officially being decided. Heavyweight giants and tournament underdogs take center stage tonight in two high-stakes quarter-finals clashes across the United States. The latest with Mark Summers.
Very much, Mona. So Spain has advanced to the World Cup semi-finals following a dramatic 2-1 victory over Belgium, setting up a blockbuster showdown against France. La Roca opened the scoring in the 30th minute, courtesy of a strike by Fabian Ruiz, before Belgium fought back to equalise through a Charles de Ketelaere just before half-time. The decisive through came in the 88th minute when Mikel Merino netted a late winner to seal Spain's spot in the Final Four. Spain will now face powerhouse France in a highly anticipated semi-final clash. And a historic showdown is locked in for the World Cup quarterfinals in Miami as tournament underdogs Norway face off against football giants England tonight. Norway enters the clash looking to extend their unprecedented fairy tale run and secure a spot in the Final Four for the very first time in their history. Meanwhile, England relies on its tournament experience as the Three Lions aim to replicate their 2018 semi-final run. The high-stakes quarter-final clash at the Miami Stadium is expected to draw a massive global audience. Then, straight after Miami, World Cup action shifts to the Arrowhead Stadium tonight, where defending champions Argentina face a dangerous Switzerland side for a spot in the Final Four. The reigning champions enter the high-stakes quarter-final looking to secure a semi-final berth and keep their title defence alive. Meanwhile, a resilient Swiss squad is aiming to pull off a massive tournament upset against the global giants. The winners of this highly anticipated clash in Kansas City will move one step closer to lifting the World Cup trophy. An exciting night of World Cup football ahead of us. And now let's go back to Mona in the studio.
Thank you so much, Mark. And that brings us to the end of our news bulletin for this hour. But before we go, here is a quick recap of the top stories making headlines this hour. President Sisi welcomes Egypt's historic World Cup squad in Al Alamein. Iran's supreme leader warns US and Israel as tensions rise. and the Iranian president calls for immediate regional de-escalation. Well, that concludes this hour's Q News Bulletin. As the day's development continue to unfold, our coverage continues as well. Stay with us on Q News.